Alright, so everything's fiberglass, all the screws look good, everything's ready. So now we can put away our hanging tools, whatever. And basically we're going to turn around and get this all coated out. Then I'm going to let it set up, then I'm going to second coat it, and then we're going to follow through with the texture. I'm using a quick set hot mud. I don't recommend you using a hot mud. The only reason I'm using it is because we finished these jobs in one trip. Sheetrock, tape coated, and textured all in one trip. But if you're a newbie and you never really mudded before, just stick to an all-purpose joint compound. Joint compounds have to dry overnight in between coats, and you usually sand in between coats, either with the 80 grit or 150 grit sandpaper. Sand in between coats, and then follow through with the second coat. Let it dry. Sand it. Do a third coat if need be. Then you can turn around texture. But this is a hot mud quick set technique that we're doing here with 5 minute. I'm using 5 minute, 20 minute, 40 minute, 90 minute. I'm working on stilts. So since I'm working on stilts, my help is just going to mix me pan by pan. It's also easier if you just maybe mix like a half a bucket of mud and just have it all ready up for you. And that way you can just scoop it out of the bucket. I don't think this job's going to call for a lot of mud. Instead of pulling out all the drill tools and hooking up the hose to wash up the tools, we're just going to mix pan by pan. Takes a little more effort, but I got help, so why not? Since I'm doing all the stilt work, he can do something. He can mix up the mud. Once I got the fiberglass in, some guys like to pre-fill before they fiberglass, but I'm just striking in the fiberglass. I do this on most of my repairs. If you watched a few of my patching videos, you'll see that I strike in the fiberglass mesh tape. What that does is pushing the mud inside the grooves and the gaps of the actual tape and gets inside the sheetrock gaps. It's a good pre-fill technique, so I'm getting it all in the nooks and crannies and crevices of fiberglass instead of just coating over it. I'm getting it pushed inside, getting that mud. So basically, once you get everything pre-filled, striked in with the 5 minute or regular mud, you'll have to let it start setting up. If you striked it in pretty heavy, you're going to have to kind of slick out your pre-fill area. But since I did a tight strike in, I'm just going to follow through and I'm going to do a nice, healthy first coat. I'm coating all that seams, all the rows of nails, and basically the area that's tied in here is going to need an extra mud coat, thicker coat, because it's tying into the new to the old. Technique we do, we just mix it in the pan. Like I said, you can mix it in a bucket. This is just an easier technique, just trying to keep all the tools, pulling out everything we own out of the trailer so we don't have to pull out a mixer, wash station, all that. Sometimes easier just mix pan at a time, especially when you're dealing with hot muds. If you're dealing with a 5 minute, definitely pan at a time. But we could have did a 20 minute and just mix like a half a bucket of 20 minute and then it would have set up, but sometimes it takes a little longer than 20 minutes to set up. So we know it gets a strong finish when we use these 5 minute quick set muds. Like I said, this is a professional grade material, so just stick to joint compounds if you don't know what you're doing. Basically get everything nice and coated. If you use the joint compound after you get everything coated, you're just going to have to let it set up overnight. Once it dries, then you turn around and sand it. With this, you'll see after it sets up that I'm going to go through with a wet sponge and a 6-inch knife and basically slick it out. It's kind of like a wet sanding technique. You're basically taking your 6-inch knife and a wet sponge and you're just slicking over everything. It's taking off the extra mud. It's pushing it where it needs to go. It takes a little more time doing slick out jobs. You do a few of these and then you kind of get the hang of it. So it's something you don't watch this video and you think you can slick it out. It takes working with the materials, manipulating the materials. It's kind of an artwork when you're kind of forming the materials and basically taking off the materials where it's not needed and keeping the materials where it's needed. So it just takes practice working with these hot muds. That's why I recommend just stick to a joint compound. But basically, we're going to go through here, same thing, going to get it second coated, then slick it out, get everything ready, and then we're just going to follow through and do a texture. The texture on here is going to be what's called a skip trowel. Depending on your job, you might not have a skip trowel, you might have something else. If you want to leave this smooth, I just recommend maybe do a tight coat of joint compound over everything and just call it smooth. But basically the process is the same. Get everything 1 coat, 2 coats. I could get away with 2 coat in my work because I do it every time. But sometimes you might need a 3rd coat, and if it still looks rough and deep, even follow through with a tight 4th coat, no problem. We're going to get everything coated here, get everything slicked out, 2 coats slicked out, and then texture. So it's pretty much watch and learn video. We don't have a lot of noises going on because 2 guys working together on a job site, and I don't want them to block me for stuff they shouldn't hear. So just follow along, watch and learn. You're just seeing the process. And I also have a ton of other videos on my channel. Drywall patching, stress cracks repairs. So you can watch a few videos and kind of see the drywall repair process. This is my process. Of course, everybody has their own way and everybody thinks they're better and everybody has an opinion. But this is the way we do it. I actually have to work every day or I don't eat. So this is what I do. But yeah, I'm going to follow along, get this all textured up. Once this patio is all textured up, they're just going to have to let the texture dry at least a day or so. And then some textures need sanding, but since this is a patio, they didn't really sand the existing skip trowel. So they just let the texture dry a day or so and then primer it. Always primer new drywall, either with a PVA drywall sealer or a Kills 2 latex. Those 2 work good. If you have a carport, exposed carport like this, or even a garage or a patio, I recommend just putting a fresh coat of paint on the whole ceiling. The paint will help protect it from the elements. Sheetrock, if it's going to be exposed to the elements, heat, hot, cold, weathering, wind, it's going to get beat up really bad. So the only thing you can do to it to protect it's fresh paint. It's not like a house that can go 20, 30 years without being painted. Drywall, I would say, if you do have it on an outside carport like this or a patio, keep an eye on it maybe every 5 to 10 years, maybe the 8th year. That's when I would recommend doing a paint. And I really don't recommend doing flat paints either on anything that's exposed outside. I would go with a gloss paint, semi-gloss, something glossier. Heavy duty, expensive exterior paint because that way it gives you some protection value in it. And plus with the good expensive exterior paint, it's not watered down. So when you're trying to paint something overhead, it's not making a big old mess if you're rolling the paint out. It's pretty easy. 2 sheets of drywall here. Got it all hung, taped, coated, and textured. I think this job between the 2 of us took less than 3 hours. And that included picking up the sheetrock from the supplier. But pretty easy. And this is just a patio that it fell down because the old sheetrock was old and brittle and is tacked up with nails. So this is screwed up, added screws on the outside edge, new sheetrock, coated it with the hot mud so it's a strong material. So this should last a very long time, especially if they put a high quality paint on it. But I hope you like this video. Just watch and learn. That's pretty much it. Thank you.